Hello and welcome to another episode of After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over last week's events in Scientology. And of course, this week we are focused laser precise on Danny Masterson's retrial, because that is kind of what's going on in Scientology right now. So Tony, welcome back.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So there was a lot. This was quite a week. This was the first week of the actual trial where opening statements started and things rolled out with some some testimony and some cross-examination, expert witness testimony. One of the husbands testified. So lots happened, and we saw Sean Hawley in action as well. I guess I wanted to ask, just to sort of set the stage, and then I've got some comments on a few things I wanted to get your feedback on. But what did you kind of, if you were going to summate the week and kind of what's the tenor and tone of this, maybe compared to last time, or how's it going in there in the courtroom?
Well, I guess the thing we were most curious about, Chris, is what's going to be different this time.
Yeah.
And quite a few things are different. Sean, like you pointed out, Sean Hawley is on the defense with Philip Cohen rather than Karen Goldstein. Leah Remini was in the courtroom 2 days this week, Monday and Friday. And the prosecution has clearly learned from, where the fault lines were in the first trial, and they're coming with a very different approach. They've shifted the order of the witnesses a little. They're going a little more chronological now. Mm-hmm. They're obviously allowed by Judge Olmedo to put a lot more Scientology content in. Last time, they were putting in some Scientology content, but it was always kind of very cautious, and she would kind of push at them if they went. Now they're just full bore, lots of details. That I know you can tell us some, interesting things about. Mm-hmm. And another big thing is that, in the first trial, they were saying that these women had had a drink that Danny gave them, and then they were suspiciously intoxicated. And they kind of expected the jury to put two and two together and infer that there had been drugging going on. This time, they're just saying it.
That's right.
Danny, evidence, Deputy DA Mueller said, the evidence will show Danny Masterson drugged these women. So much more, stronger on that. And, if I had a criticism on the first trial, Chris, it was that the prosecution needed to tell a more compelling story, that the jury wants to be told a tale.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think this time they're doing a much better job telling a cohesive story, a consistent story about this man who attacked a number of women over a number of years with very similar tactics involving drugging and violence. And so I thought that the opening was much stronger. On the defense side, Cohen seemed he was off his game a little bit. It seemed like the opening statement caught him a little bit by surprise, and he was sort of playing catch up, and he never quite hit the high notes that he did the first trial. And then Jane Doe 3 came to testify first. That's different than last trial, but it's chronological. She was with Danny. She was a live-in girlfriend for 6 years between 1996 and 2002. And, just like last time, she tells a really interesting story about what it was like at only 17 to meet this guy, move in with him. He gets on that 70s show. Her modeling career kind of ends, but she's, with him. And then after, it was very charming and a great first year. And after that, he became this loveless, controlling, aggressive guy. And she kind of got used to, being assaulted to the point where she thought it was normal that he would force himself on her.
Right. And
then she was shocked when in December 2001, he raped her while she was unconscious. And that was the final step when she decided to go do something about it and went to the Church of Scientology. Now, this time, we've heard all those things in the first trial, but this time we got some nuts and bolts details about what that ethics program was that she went
Yeah.
through.
Mm-hmm.
And, she got emotional talking about it a couple times. I had a hard time keeping up with her because she started talking really fast. But, she clearly wanted all of us to understand how absurd it was that in Scientology, the victim, especially if they're talking about an upstat celebrity, that they're made to feel that they pulled it in, that they are at fault for their own victimization, and they have to go through various courses and things to explain how they would understand the ethics consequences they would face if they said anything about it to law enforcement.
That's right.
So she gave us some real details about that. And I just felt like, wow, I hope this jury's paying better attention than the previous jury because the Scientology component is there. Now, what did you think about some of those details that she went into?
Oh, I thought a lot about them because it's abundantly clear that it's easier to follow. With the narrative and the way the transcripts are rolling out, it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting what's happening here. And when it comes to the Scientology stuff, I had a few points I wanted to comment on. The first one being that I wanted to remind everybody, in case it's not kind of clear, because it's not obvious. And last time, in the first trial, I actually did a whole show kind of breaking down some ethics and justice stuff of Scientology. So I wanted to remind everybody about that you're good in Scientology if you're an earner, if you're an upstat, they say, right? You're bringing in money, you're bringing in people, you are contributing in some material way to the Church of Scientology and its fortune and its good name and PR image and all that. And that's what those celebrities are all about. That at the end of the day, that's the value they have to Scientology. And so the whole attitude that underlies this gruesome, dehumanizing ethics activity against JD3 was because she's not the earner. He is.
Right.
So when she comes to the Church of Scientology with a complaint about him, the entire attitude of the church is, he's the upstat, he's the earner. You're the one who has a problem. And we're going to have to put you in your place because if you keep on like this, that's going to endanger our earner. Legal? What? Sexual assault? What? No. You don't get to call it that. Right. We're not going to let you even call it that. And we're going to tell you very clearly, and this is cultural. This isn't even these two bozos who dealt with her. This is the whole culture of this is you need to shut up because what you're doing right now is endangering our earner. And that's, I'm telling you, it's that cut and dry in terms of how they approach this ethics stuff. And that's why I wanted to stress that it's all about degrading the person into a state of compliance.
Yeah, and a couple of details that I hadn't heard before that I thought were vivid, and I'm glad the jury heard them, was that after Jane Doe 3 came to the Church of Scientology and said that she had been raped by Danny Masterson, not only was she told by Miranda and Chris Goggins that it's not rape, you can't call it that, but that she needed to make amends to him.
That's right.
And they had her, for example, getting his car washed. She had to get a rapist's car washed because the Church of Scientology told her to. I just thought that was stunning.
Oh, absolutely. And doesn't it go hand in hand with that earlier statement from Scoggins, the bloody chaplain? It's such a corrupted use of the term. This chaplain telling her, oh no, your role, your exchange with Danny is to give him sex whenever he wants. How, don't you understand? That's your job. That's what you're there for. And that again is about that compliance. So, here she is being uppity. Well, we're going to have to smack you back down. And the amends is the sort of mechanism they use to do that, between that and all the pressure from the justice actions, the overt withhold write-ups and the courts of ethics and all that stuff. It's all this apparatus to put pressure on you so that you'll comply.
And then Chris Goggins, the chaplain, negotiated their breakup, the
Yeah.
terms of their breakup.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that sounds common to you as a Scientologist, but to me, it just sounded bizarre.
Yeah, no, to me it was like I wish that's the only time I'd ever heard of something like that happening, but of course they do that. Scientology is, and I kind of like bringing this in. I mean, it's like it's a totalist system. It
Yeah.
really seeks to run every aspect of your life. And
Hmm.
this is why, I did a business dispute for Billy Sheehan one time as in a committee of evidence
Wow.
because that's how Scientologists deal with things is they want to use the Scientology or they're forced to use the Scientology, apparatus.
Right.
So I was like, of course they negotiated the breakup because they got to protect that earner, you know? And the more control Scientology has over these matters, the more secure Scientology feels about the whole thing, you know? Ugh.
Well, then she was Jane Doe 3 was cross-examined by Sean Hawley,
Mm-hmm.
and I've now seen Jane Doe 3 cross-examined by Tom Mesereau, Philip Cohen, and now Sean Hawley. And defense attorneys have to walk a fine line because they don't want the jury to get the perception that they're beating up on a rape victim. That
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't look good, right? But they have to ask them tough questions. So they're walking a tightrope most of the time. And Mesereau and Cohen were both very deferential, but they were also a little. They were both pretty good at their jobs. Sean Hawley is so good at being polite and seeming to be very compassionate. At one point, Jane Doe 3 actually said something like, you make me feel like you're my friend, but you're not.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So I have to say, Sean Hawley was very, very good at that. But I still didn't think that she was landing many punches. It really felt like she was just sort of poking around the edges, and it just it seemed all very minor.
Yeah.
And I don't think she scored very many points against. I mean, the main defense approach with Jane Doe 3 is that the thing that made her finally go and complain about Danny to the church was this December 21st unconscious sodomy incident.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what Danny's facing charges on.
Right.
After she had gone to the police with that, they found this previous November 2001 incident where she pulled his hair and he hit her.
Right.
And that's the incident they're using. And what the defense always likes to point out is that when she went to Scientology, when she went to the Austin PD, when she went to the rape hotline, when she went to the LAPD, she only ever spoke about the second one, the December one. And they're trying to put into the minds of the jury the idea, if this November thing was so bad, why was she only talking about the other one?
Right.
The prosecution's take on that is that she had become so used to being abused by him and that he would have sex whether she wanted it or not, that the November incident was, she considered it normal.
That's
And
right.
only in hindsight did she realize, hey, he raped me. So that's interesting. And I thought that she did a very good job this time. And also her husband, Cedric, did a very good job. They kind of knew where the attacks were coming from the first trial. So they knew what they were going to get attacked on is, why didn't you mention some of these details that you're saying now back then? And both of them, I thought, did kind of a common sense thing with the jury and said, look, when we first spoke to the police 6 years ago, we didn't know how this all worked.
Exactly.
We didn't, Jane Doe 3 literally didn't know she could say to the police, no, that's wrong. What you just said is wrong. Make sure you say what, because for example, in that November incident, she said she pulled his hair to get him off her, and he smacked her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, she says it was between a slap and a fist. It was kind of a closed fist. And so that's become a big issue. Didn't you say slap at some time?
That's
But
right.
she stood up for herself and said, look, I told the detective he hit me. I said it 4 times. He hit me. She said slap.
Yep.
She made the assumption. Now, yes, today, if that happened, she would stop the detective and say, no, I didn't say slap. You said slap. But she's saying back then, they were new to this whole process. I thought that was a really smart way to approach the jury. It's like, look, I'm being honest. I know there's some things that are different. Here's why they're different. And in that way, I think they're anticipating some of these prosecution complaints. And by the end of the week, I have to say that Cohen and Hawley, on both of their cross examinations, they were trying to play the hits, Chris. They were trying to play the
Mm.
stuff that seemed to work in the first trial, and it just didn't have the same impact. Now, let's give the disclaimer. We don't know what the jury's thinking. We have no idea if they also think that Jane Doe 3 did a good job and the defense was weak. But just from sitting there and watching this thing unfold, it just felt all week long that the prosecution was much better prepared than before, knew how to tell a better story, had anticipated these attacks, and then that sort of took some of this air out of the sails for the defense.
Yeah.
But it's early. It's early. We'll see how it goes.
Mm.
By Friday, Cedric, Jane Doe 3's husband, had testified, and Jane Doe 1 had started, and she got. Well, let me just talk briefly
Yeah.
about Jane Doe 1's. What's a big difference, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens on cross. In order to set up the April 2003 incident, and just Jane Doe 3, the one who started, she was in a 6-year relationship with Masterson. Jane Doe 1, the second person testifying, she was an acquaintance of Masterson. She was not dating him.
Right.
And before the April 2003 incident, that's the charged alleged rape, there's a September 2002 incident where they ended up having sex one night after drinking.
Mm.
And this was presented at the first trial. And the upshot of it was, okay, Jane Doe 1 had something to drink. They went back to his place. She was just supposed to spend the night. They started, fooling around, and she said, "This is stupid." Wait a minute, what's going on? This is stupid. But she did not say it's not consensual. They had sex, and that the biggest effect of it was that it made their circle of friends were angry at them.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, last trial, she didn't really say who those friends were, but she said that they were unhappy. Okay, this time, Deputy DA Reinhold Mueller spent a lot more time with her going over that incident. And let me tell you, there was a very different feel to it. Now, there is a suggestion of drugging. There was not
Right.
last trial. This time, they are definitely suggested she was drugged in that incident, and they're making it sound more like a rape. Also, she named the friends that were so unhappy that this had happened, specifically Lisa Marie Presley. If you remember in the first trial, when Lisa Marie came, her name was first brought up, the DA wanted her to testify about how the church had asked her to convince Jane Doe 1 not to go to the police. And that's when we learned that they were very close friends.
Yeah.
But Jane Doe 1 never mentioned her. And I remember thinking that, why didn't Jane Doe 1 mention her? But this time, definitely, she is saying that she was part of Lisa Presley's circle. Danny had his own circle. Those two circles intersected, and people were really disappointed in them that they'd had that encounter.
Right.
So, really interesting new way to cast that September incident leading up to the April one. And I think part of the reason, it seems to me, in the first trial and in this one, it sets up a little bit, why would Danny have been so obnoxious at that April 2003 party, throwing her in the jacuzzi? I think they want to give the impression that Danny was unhappy with how he had been hearing about the September thing.
Yeah.
and that there was a little bit of a revenge thing going on. He
Yeah.
was going to teach her a lesson for,
Mm-hmm.
flapping her gums or whatever. They're not saying these things outright, Chris, but it kind of feels that way. So we got through the September 2002 incident, started the April 2003, and ran out of time. We got up to where she got thrown into the jacuzzi and ran out of
Got it.
time. So Monday morning, we'll go right into the really brutal part
Right.
of the alleged rape in that incident. So that's how her. So I don't know how the defense is going to approach those new items, but you can see Cohen is just really upset anytime there's something new.
Yeah, I'll bet. And I think a subtle thing I noticed that I just think it's worth commenting is that, in terms of telling that story, they see, at least according to what the reporting you're doing, they're providing a lot more photos. I'm imagining these are big blown up.
Yes, good point. Yes, in the opening statement, they made much better use of visuals this time. There's a
Yeah.
TV monitor that's just off of the Judge Olmedo's bench. It's over the witness stand, so the witness sits underneath this monitor, and
Okay.
we can all see it pretty well. And they're making great use of it. They've got these slides. In particular, there's this one slide of all four women, read their faces really close up, staring at you. Somebody was thinking that's a very effective slide. And I
Mm-hmm.
say four because remember, Danny's facing charges on three, Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3. Last trial, a fourth accuser, actress Trisha Vesey, was brought
Right.
in.
That's
She's
right.
not going to testify this time, but a new fourth person is being brought in. Kathleen Jenkins, she's the Toronto woman I wrote about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And her allegations are from the year 2000 when Danny was in Toronto shooting a film. And at that time, he was still with Jane Doe 3. So that's interesting. So again, the four faces staring at you, that was one effective slide. And other really interesting slides that kind of, they want to show you these women at that time.
Mm.
And they made much better use of visuals this time than last time.
Yeah, I think that is brilliant because it does contribute to creating that narrative that you want the jury to be following along with and kind of running through their minds. What's the movie of this? How does it look?
Right.
Way better than just talking. Oh, it's two bedroom, blah 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 blah. You show a picture, people get it right off. All right, cool. Now, another thing that came up, hinted at in the testimony, you could say, was some perhaps undue influence, or dare we say corruption, on the part of the LAPD, maybe specifically the
Oh
Hollywood
yeah.
division. This was coming up in testimony. I happen to agree wholeheartedly because we have seen, you're in your own reporting, the electronic devices from Scientology that they installed over there, the Way to Happiness stuff, the money they've given to the LAPD, they being the Church of Scientology. This is influence peddling. This is getting in there and rubbing elbows with these guys in what they call in Scientology PR area control. And they do mean control. I don't want this to get like crazy conspiratorial nefarious, but that is what the policy says, is go get in control of these civic institutions around you so that when the shit hits the fan like it is right now, they're on your side, not on your enemy's side. It's what it's all about for Scientology. And they have cultivated relationships with the LAPD for decades. And it appears from the testimony that this has borne fruit for Scientology as part of the influence they have.
Oh yeah. When Jane Doe 3 first went to the police, it was in Austin, Texas, because she happened to be living there.
Yeah.
They brought out the LAPD. And they were told, we cannot give this to the Hollywood division. They were told that it would be handled by a downtown, and it would be like a major crimes division or robbery or something to hide the fact that they were doing a major rape investigation in Hollywood. They hid it. They literally the downtown LAPD officials hid it from the Hollywood division because the Hollywood division was known inside the LAPD for being so co-opted by the Church of Scientology. And there's this wonderful follow-up to that, Chris. When the news finally broke, I broke the news on March 3rd, 2017, that this investigation was going on. And the LAPD had to put out a statement. Yes, we're investigating Danny Masterson. That day, Corey Palka, the captain of the Hollywood division, wrote an email to one of his colleagues and said, is that one of ours? Or that's one of ours, isn't it? And it's so beautiful because it shows that he had no idea. They had done such a good job hiding this from the Hollywood division that the captain of the Hollywood division had no idea that Danny Masterson was under investigation. So, and Corey Palka has now been disgraced. He retired, but he's been disgraced. He's been swept up in this investigation of how he ran interference for the CBS CEO. But anyway, that's a little separate. But the point is, inside the LAPD, it was known that the Hollywood division was hopelessly corrupt and co-opted by the Church of Scientology. And so these women were really angry at how, great, so downtown's going to handle it. But then they were so angry at how badly it was mishandled from the beginning.
That's right.
So in the first trial, they kind of tiptoed around it. That, well, there was initially a lead investigator named Detective Esther Reyes. Then there was a Detective Javier Vargas. And they even admonished the jury about how sometimes, things are reassigned. You shouldn't read anything into it, because the defense was just really ready to pounce on them if they said anything negative about Reyes. Well, this time, no, fully open. Detective Reyes bungled the case from the beginning.
Right.
She did some very strange things with it, and the women panicked, and that's why they were speaking to each other. See, that's the other thing the defense makes a big thing about, is that the women have been told, don't talk to each other because we don't want to, contaminate the case. But they felt forced to talk to each other because Reyes was mishandling things so badly.
That's right.
So they're very open about that this time. And of course, that's going to be really interesting when Reyes takes a stand. Now that she's been talked about this way, she wasn't talked about this way in the first trial. So that's another big difference.
Yeah, she'll probably be a little more defensive this time. But rightfully so, because from the testimony you've been hearing, it was bungled. I mean, just messed up, and words changed. That slap thing. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just not good.
Yeah, I just thought of it the other day, Chris. It's like, okay, so Jane Doe 3 is saying, I was new to the process. I said it was a hit. She said it was a slap. I didn't know that I could correct a detective.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very smart thing for her to say. But here's the thing. There's no excuse for the detective. I mean, if Jane Doe 3 was new to the process, Detective Reyes wasn't.
That's right.
So why was Detective Reyes doing that? Why was she making assumptions that it was a slap, not a hit? Why was she putting words into Jane Doe 3's mouth? It's very strange, and she really had no excuse for some of the things she was
That's right.
saying. So that, again, that'll be interesting when she comes up.
It will be. It'll be interesting on both ends. Okay, well, those were basically the points I wanted to make this week from what I was observing. Those points we hit on, and sort of walking through a lot of the highlights of what occurred this week. It was a wild week, and I'm wondering, I don't know, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm thinking next week they've been making really steady, fast progress through this thing, even with everything that's come up.
Pretty fast. Jane Doe 1 will start testimony Monday morning, and she may be done with direct examination by the lunch break. I don't know if they can get done by then, but then cross-examination will start. I believe it's going to be Cohen cross-examining her, not Hawley. And then after they're done with Jane Doe 1, they tend to put the corroborating witness with the witness. So after Jane Doe 3, they put her husband. So after Jane Doe 1, I think they'll bring her cousin Rachel. who saw her in Florida and saw the bruises.
Right, right.
And then in the first trial, they would then go into Jane Doe 2, the final of the three. But I think possibly after Cousin Rachel, they may bring in Claire Headley, the expert on
Okay.
Scientology.
Was
And
wondering when
that
that was going to be plugged in.
I think they could, because Jane Doe 3 and Jane Doe 1, the first two witnesses, had a much heavier experience with Scientology. Both of them went to Scientology with the complaints.
Right.
Both of them were put into ethics programs. And so you want to have Claire close to them to explain those things. Jane Doe 2 was also a Scientologist, but she didn't go to Scientology. She didn't go through an ethics program. So I think they may have Claire come before her. But that's all subject to change. We don't know for sure. But, it's possible we could see Claire by, say, maybe Wednesday.
Okay.
So that could be really interesting.
All right. And so I have it right then. I think I do that. All the prosecution's witnesses roll out, then the defense makes their case with their
Right.
witnesses.
So then
it won't
Jane
be Claire's stepdad, because he won't come till significantly later, if he comes at all.
Right. So then after Claire, they might go to Jane Doe 2 and then her corroborating witnesses. She has four of them.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah, Jane Doe 3 and Jane Doe 2, Jane Doe 1 only had one each. Jane Doe 2 has four of them, like her mother, who was great last time.
Yeah.
And then after those corroborating witnesses, then I guess it would be police and experts.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just hope we have less of those police witnesses, because they were just deadly last time. And they're the only witness. They already put up the toxicology witness, and they would do Claire. So the only other expert they have left is they have a toxicology. I mean, they had a rape trauma expert. But the third expert would be the LAPD toxicologist, who would talk about how date rape drugs work.
Right.
And then I think that would be basically it for the prosecution. And then it would be the defense's time. Last time, they didn't put on anybody. And the defense doesn't have to put on anybody. If they feel like, okay, we're happy, we don't think they've proved beyond a reasonable doubt, we'll take our chances. That's what they did last time. And it's probably what they'll do this time. I think they might have put Claire's stepfather as their expert, mainly as just a stunt to intimidate her, which won't work.
Well, I'm having a thought right now on that one, if I might, that if he's the last person the jury hears from, and he can somehow make a reasonable case for Scientology despite everything they've heard, or get some key points in there to give them, all it takes is reasonable doubt. So I could see them maybe firing him as the last shot. I'm just saying, I don't know.
He's a public OT8. He's not an expert in the way Claire is. He doesn't know.
I'm sure that's true. It doesn't mean they're not going to do it. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it could also be disastrous if he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So clearly, I'm not trying to necessarily say this is how it's absolutely going to go. Just thinking out loud.
But she's, Judge Olmedo is really riding them to not hurry, but not to waste time. She doesn't she hates the way Cohen asks the same question 10 different ways.
Right.
And she's trying to rein him in. And also, I think with Mueller, actually, this helps me because of my job, because Mueller will do this every time. Well, at that point in time, did he indicate to you? And I can ignore all that. Nobody needs to hear that. And so that gives me a few seconds to catch up, correct a couple spellings, and then what's his actual question? And she hates that. Well, she doesn't hate that much, but he will repeat what's been said before as a preamble to what he wants to ask. She says, just get to the question.
Right.
Both of them annoy her, but she's just trying to keep things going. And, she knows the jury's only got so much patience. So, but they seem to be interested. I mean, I don't get a lot of chance to look at them, Chris, because they're over on the side and I'm trying to pay attention to the witness and write everything. But when I have had a chance to look, out of the 5 looks I've gotten 4 of the times they just seemed really interested in whatever the witness was saying. One of the 5 times they were kind of looking down in their laps, like maybe they were not as interested. So we'll see. I don't, it's hard to know for sure.
All right. Well, we'll find out. I've just been absolutely fascinated by this. Oh, I wanted to say, I do feel, I mean, it's good that you said that about Judge Olmedo, because it reminded me that I definitely don't feel she's trying to, let's go. Kind of like that was the vibe I got the first time around. You know, it's like, come on, we've only got until blah, blah, because it's a holiday.
Right,
Da, 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 da.
right.
And this is a whole different kind of energy. But yet at the same time, yeah, she does not tolerate bullshit. She wants to
I mean, she's watching for things like they were starting to get off into a tangent about, I don't know, harassment or something, and she's just like, you're not going to go there. We have to keep on track. So
right.
it's not. Yes, I think a lot of people felt in the first trial she was maybe encouraging both sides to call fewer people so they get done by Thanksgiving.
Right.
This time, she is riding herd on them, but it's for very legitimate reasons to not waste time.
Right.
And so it's going along pretty good. She got a little impatient with Mueller because he's asking such. The thing about Jane Doe 1 story about that night is it's so impossible to follow. I still don't completely understand about. She was going to stay the night at Breeze, but they went to a birthday party, and then they went to a DJ thing, and then somebody had the keys, somebody didn't have the keys. And she was going to go here to pick up the keys, and it's just like, oh God, just get to the party. We don't care how she got to the party, you know. So, and Judge Olmedo finally said something like, "Look, get to the incident."
Right, right. This is interesting color, but come on, let's go. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Get that. All right. Well, looking forward to you reporting this week.
You bet, Chris.
Yeah. All right, guys out there, of course. If you're not subscribed to Tony's Substack, get subscribed now. If you're not subscribed,
please sign up for free emails at tonyortega.substack.com, and my reports from the courthouse you'll get in your inbox the second I put them out 3 or 4 times a day. Yep. You'll get complete reports of basically everything said in the courtroom.
Yeah, it's been a real magnifying glass into how these cases go, both last time and this time. And of course, if you're not subscribed to this channel, get subscribed. All right. So see you guys next week. Bye-bye.